Do dogs think humans are dogs? At first glance, the question sounds playful, almost harmless, yet it quietly rests on an assumption that does not match how a canine mind works. The idea assumes dogs sort the world into categories, labels, or roles the same way people do. Behavioral research suggests a very different process. Dogs do not organize life around titles like dog, parent, or leader. Perception is built around patterns, consistency, and how safe a situation feels within the body. Attention goes to routine changes, emotional signals, and predictable behavior. Responses often happen before conscious thought would ever form. From that perspective, asking whether dogs see humans as dogs becomes a human-style question applied to a non-human nervous system. That mismatch is where many misunderstandings begin. To truly understand the bond, it helps to explore how dogs actually experience daily life and why identity is not the framework guiding that experience. If you care about understanding your dog beyond surface behavior, consider subscribing. How dogs experience the world, not how we do. People move through daily life by attaching meaning to nearly everything. Objects receive names, situations gain explanations. Relationships are framed through intention and story. That mental layer helps humans feel oriented and in control. A canine mind does not operate inside that system. Experience unfolds through constant sensory feedback rather than interpretation. Subtle changes matter more than ideas. The rhythm of movement shifts, voice tone tightens or softens. Footsteps move faster or hesitate. A room that felt calm moments earlier carries a different emotional pressure without any visible reason. Long before conscious thought could exist, the body has already reacted. The nervous system responds first. Muscles adjust, attention sharpens or releases. A door opening slightly quicker than usual can register as important. A breath drawn differently can alter the entire mood of a space. For a dog, such changes are not concepts to analyze. Each one functions as a signal. Every signal answers a single biological question. Is this an environment where settling is possible, or one where vigilance is necessary? That decision happens immediately. No logic is involved. No emotional story is built. Physiology leads the response. This explains why dogs often react before humans notice anything has shifted. The reaction is not confusion or misbehavior. It is accurate sensory reading. Understanding this difference helps clarify why dogs do not think about identity, intention, or meaning. Interaction is guided by how the world feels inside the body from one moment to the next. When surroundings feel predictable, regulation follows. When unpredictability rises, alertness replaces ease. That internal process shapes behavior far more than conscious reasoning ever could. Why humans need labels and dogs don't. Humans are deeply uncomfortable without clear structure. Roles help reduce uncertainty. Knowing whether someone is a parent, leader, favorite, or authority creates psychological orientation. Labels offer reassurance and predictability. A canine nervous system does not depend on that framework. Attachment forms without symbolic meaning. No internal title is assigned. What matters instead is repetition. Repeated experiences teach the body what to expect. A steady presence becomes familiar. A predictable presence lowers internal tension. An environment that rarely surprises allows relaxation to emerge. That simple calculation forms the foundation of attachment. Online discussions often translate canine bonding into human language because it feels comforting. Terms like mom, dad, or leader give emotional clarity. While those words may help humans feel connected, dogs do not require interpretation to attach. Reliability is sufficient. Consistency teaches safety. Sudden changes teach caution. Attachment is not a belief held in the mind. Attachment is a learned pattern stored in the nervous system. When a pattern remains stable over time, regulation increases naturally. Many common dog myths begin at the point where human needs for meaning are projected onto canine experience. That projection creates confusion. Connection for dogs is not philosophical, it is practical and biological. Predictable behavior, steady emotional output, and familiar rhythm allow trust to grow. Remove the language layer, and what remains is simple. The body learns whether a presence increases ease or uncertainty. That learning process quietly shapes every bond without requiring explanation. What dogs track instead of identity? If identity and labels are not guiding canine perception, attention moves elsewhere. Regulation becomes the central focus. Dogs notice how movement unfolds across time. Abrupt actions raise internal pressure. Smooth transitions lower it. Emotional reactions matter as well. Escalation teaches alertness. Measured responses support calm adjustment. Presence changes the atmosphere of a space in subtle ways. Some individuals unintentionally compress emotional energy. Others allow tension to dissipate naturally. For a dog, those differences hold more weight than intention or affection. This explains why rest often occurs near one particular person, even when care is evenly shared. Food, walks, and attention may be identical. Internal experience is not. Near certain individuals, fewer surprises occur. Emotional shifts happen gradually. Predictability increases. The nervous system processes the environment with less effort. That response is biological, not preferential in the human sense. Affection does not determine proximity. Stability does. Evaluation does not involve judgment. It involves bodily ease. Two caregivers can offer equal love and still feel very different to a dog at rest. The difference lies in internal regulation, not emotional depth. Dogs do not decide who someone is. Instead, attention stays on how the body responds when the world slows and nothing is demanded. Over time, that response becomes familiar. Once established, it quietly shapes future interaction. Behavior flows from regulation patterns formed beneath awareness. Understanding this process clarifies why dogs respond so reliably to emotional environments rather than verbal roles. The bond grows from internal balance, not identity recognition. Attachment without roles. Many people feel comforted by the idea that a dog views them as a mother or father. That framing feels familiar and emotionally grounding. It fits naturally into how humans understand closeness and care. Dogs, however, do not form attachment through titles, labels, or imagined roles. Bonding develops through experience repeated over time. When uncertainty appears and attention turns toward you, no identity is being referenced internally. No category is activated. Nothing is being named. What unfolds is a learned bodily response shaped by consistency. Over many interactions, the nervous system registers that confusion resolves more smoothly when this presence is nearby. Situations stabilize faster. Environmental pressure decreases. Attachment grows quietly from those repeated outcomes. Guidance does not require a defined role. Trust does not depend on explanation. Security emerges without symbolic meaning. This helps explain why some dogs connect deeply with individuals who are calm, understated, or emotionally even, rather than loud or expressive. Steady behavior creates clarity. Predictable response patterns create safety. Attachment does not live in language or interpretation. Attachment exists in regulation. Your dog does not need to understand who you are in human terms. What matters is how the body responds when you are close. Over time, that internal response becomes familiar and reliable. That familiarity forms the bond. Nothing else is required. We explore how dogs experience the world beyond behavior. Subscribe if that matters to you. Scent, voice, and movement. How dogs recognize you. Recognition does not begin with thought for a dog. It begins with physiological response. Scent plays the strongest role in that process. When your dog detects your smell, a person is not being identified in a conceptual sense. That sensory input activates an internal state shaped by repeated experience. Calm moments, resolved situations, and predictable outcomes become linked to that scent. The nervous system responds instantly. Voice works through a similar mechanism. Words are secondary. Tone, rhythm, and emotional steadiness carry the real signal. A familiar voice does not inform or explain. It reassures. It tells the body that the environment remains manageable. Movement completes the picture. How a room is entered, the pace of steps, posture while sitting, and transitions between actions all serve as information. Those patterns tell a dog whether conditions remain stable or require heightened attention. Familiar movement lowers uncertainty. Erratic motion increases internal demand. Recognition often occurs before visual attention engages. The body has already responded before conscious awareness forms. This is why a reaction may appear immediate or delayed depending on regulation. Recognition is not a thought process. It is the nervous system registering familiarity. That response arrives automatically, long before reflection could occur. Why following you doesn't mean dogs think you're a dog. Movement changes the environment. Sounds shift. Air pressure alters slightly. Spatial rhythm resets. When a dog follows from room to room, the behavior reflects attention to those changes rather than emotional symbolism. Following is not an expression of identity confusion or species comparison. It is a regulation strategy. Staying close reduces the amount of information the nervous system must track. Proximity keeps environmental shifts predictable. Instead of monitoring multiple changes throughout a space, attention remains anchored to one steady reference point. That strategy lowers internal load. This has nothing to do with hierarchy, submission, or belief. It is practical regulation. Over time, following behavior often decreases. As routines become familiar and surroundings feel stable, proximity is no longer required to maintain orientation. That shift does not indicate reduced attachment. It reflects increased environmental safety. The nervous system has learned the space. Dogs do not follow because a person is perceived as another dog. Following happens because closeness simplifies sensory processing. Stability reduces uncertainty. Once safety becomes established, distance feels manageable. Proximity becomes optional rather than necessary. Long separation. Memory without story. Memory does not operate through narrative for a dog. Absence is not measured through time or reflection. Shared experiences are not replayed mentally. What remains stored is association. Scent links to familiarity. Voice links to reassurance. Presence links to resolution. During long separation, those associations remain intact. When reunion occurs, recognition emerges through bodily response rather than thought. The nervous system encounters familiar signals and responds immediately. Expression varies depending on regulation. One dog may release energy through movement. Another may remain close and quiet while recalibration occurs. Neither reaction reflects greater or lesser attachment. Recognition is not measured by excitement. Recognition is reflected in how quickly tension fades and breathing settles. Ease returns. That return to baseline is the true marker of memory. So, do dogs think humans are dogs? The original question can now be answered clearly. Dogs do not think humans are dogs. At the same time, dogs are not assigning an alternative identity. Species comparison is not the framework being used. Social titles do not exist in this context. Dogs do not sort relationships through labels the way humans do. Organization happens through safety. Stability matters. Regulation guides perception. Presence is evaluated by its effect on internal state. To a dog, you are not another dog, a parent, or a leader in the human sense. You are a reference point, a familiar presence the nervous system has learned to read. That presence signals whether relaxation is possible or alertness is required. This understanding dissolves the original question. The issue was never classification. The issue was experience. The bottom line, what actually matters in your relationship. In the end, labels carry no weight. Your dog is not asking who you are. Response forms around what your presence creates internally. Does the space feel predictable? Do transitions feel clear? Does settling happen more easily when nothing is being asked? Those questions are answered automatically each day by the nervous system. Consistency matters more than meaning. Safety is not an idea, it is a felt state. Calm presence, predictable response, and emotional steadiness shape the bond far more than titles ever could. If understanding how dogs truly experience the world matters to you, consider subscribing. And understanding that changes how everything else makes sense.